She actually tried to take over my life. She tried to become me.
She had already cut me off from my friends and my family.
Those set of alienating behaviours were already happening with my daughter before the separation.
The point of making me not talk about what was happening to me was to keep other people from weighing in.
Well, I always kind of knew that I was different in a way when I was very young. And I had a close friend and we kind of had this sort of relationship, but I didn't really know what that was. And I couldn't really put a label or a name to it.
I've always been attracted to women, but I did want a child. And I did love my husband. It wasn't like I didn't love him.
They know they're gay. They're brought up right through the years of school, etc. That they know they're feeling a little different in everybody else. So you marry a feminine man.
The normal thing was to get married, have a child, and that's what I did. Even though I had those feelings for women.
There is often an expectation that women will grow up and get married and have children and live a particular kind of life. It's reflected in popular culture. It's reflected in media.
I think it's really sad in some cases, that people are not able to come out. People do feel they have to conform and just had to follow society and what society said.
Yeah, no, I'm happily gay. I don't hate men. There are women that hate men. It's not right, I don't think a person should be gay because they hate men.
There's just very little representation culturally of lesbians living an intimate life.
When I came out, my mum and dad, they just dealt with it really badly. They pretty much disowned me. They didn't want to speak to me at all.
Women would often call each other, lesbian as an insult. I think I was aware of gay men before I was aware of gay women.
I mean, I didn't come out to run away from my family. I came out to be who I am and settled in what I needed for myself. Everybody's looking for love. Everybody's wants that attachment.
So when I had got divorced, I wasn't with anybody for a long time. And eventually I did meet somebody that I was very interested in. And my daughter was in matric at that time. And I thought, no, it's my time now to be happy.
We do see women in particular coming out later where the narrative is, I think, different for gay men. Not that it doesn't exist, but you often hear about gay men feeling like they knew when they were very, very young.
When people would kind of start to talk about lesbians or gays, I would just, find myself blushing and getting panic attacks and thinking, oh my goodness, this is me. I can identify with this, and just becoming really embarrassed around the whole conversation of that. Not wanting to recognize that within myself and just wanting to kind of fit in.
Where do you learn about having a sexual life? You can think to yourself that you're a lesbian and you can kind of come to terms with that. But the proof is that you have a lesbian relationship. So for some, they confused the thrill of being out, of feeling confirmed in their identity with love.
Women are more compatible in terms of being giving and kind and empathetic, and your comfort zone's better with a woman. We come from our mothers. This could be my mother figure.
She was about 10 years older than me. It was more kind of that role model at the time, or almost like it sounds weird to say, a kind of maternal or mother figure.
She came into my life. She had just got fired from a job. So she came with nothing. So I had my back up then, and I offered her to help me with my business. I had it for 12 years. She kind of took over, telling the people and my staff that she's the boss. They don't have to answer to me. But I didn't know any of this, what was happening.
I left my marital home of 15 years, 2 small children, and went to live with my partner.
sort of quite soon into the relationship, we started the discussion of having another child. And I wanted a sibling for my daughter as well. We found a donor. We were quite fortunate that it happened the first time. And I ended up being the main carer, really. She wanted to go back to work. I took on a night job so that I could parent her during the day.
So then she said to me, well, we are dating. I'll move into your house. I'll pay you rent. So we decided, okay, this would be the next step. We'd move in together. And then I did tell my daughter about it. And she just said, whatever makes you happy.
In terms of what we think is love and that idea that it's two against the world, that we don't need anybody else, it's just us together, that two become one, that we're each other's safety place.
I remember being in the bedroom and we were going to bed and she was absolutely wasted, and I can't tell you exactly, but she just lost her temper over something trivial, just something really trivial. And then ended up grabbing my hair and was yanking me around the bedroom and then just punching me like a punch bag.
The first experience of violence, we had gone with my children to my colleague's house. When I came home, my partner was home already, and she grabbed me by the throat in front of my children. She pulled me up against the wall. It was like I was horrified. By me choosing to go to my friend's house, she didn't have that control.
She had started picking on me and it just got a little bit verbal. And as she turned around, she had pushed me and then I fell on the floor and then she wanted to kick me. But my daughter was there to actually see all of this. So she backed off a bit. That's the first time she ever laid a hand on me. But the verbal abuse was always there.
So I think culturally we're not very good at talking about things, especially when things might be going really wrong in terms of abuse. Culturally, secrecy is normal.
When we started having really bad fights, the question she often had was like, who did you tell about this? Like, who knows about this? Like, there was this way of keeping it secret. And there was a lot of like very intense jealousy and accusations.
I had to have an operation and she kind of took advantage of that coming into my business. And the more I realized what was happening and I would put boundaries down, that's when I noticed she would get a trigger and she grabbed me by the throat. And she said, this is her business as well.
It was an array of abuse. It was financial, emotional, physical, mental. I used to have panic attacks. I used to go and sit in the toilet and have panic attacks because I don't know when this woman is going to attack me again.
In front of people, she would say something so nasty and she would never ever give me the chance to say what I wanted to say. And my family were noticing and they came to me and said, you don't have a voice anymore.
And there was a lot of like very intense jealousy and accusations. There was just this insistence that like I was either flirting with people constantly or wanted to have sex with people constantly, or that I was cheating or wanted to cheat or was going to cheat. The accusation is the confession that she was somebody who was a compulsive cheater.
It was physical. I mean, I used to be sitting or lying on the couch and she would just run and jump on me.
I had no energy. I didn't want to go to work because I felt useless. That's how she made me feel. You can't cope. You can't cope with this. Let me do it. I can do a better job than you. Eventually, my whole self-esteem was just broken.
So she started to make a few innuendos about she doesn't feel safe at home. The home is not comfortable. It still feels like my home and my previous partner's home. And she started to pull everything out the kitchen and change the kitchen. I never said no. There was no place for me to say no. There was a direct indication of financial gain.
So when our daughter was just turning 2, it all came to fruition that she'd been premeditating to leave the relationship. There was money that had been gone from our joint account.
So there'll be a lesbian community, and that's a lot smaller because obviously it's a smaller proportion of the population, but it means that If you say my partner's been violent, you could find yourself out of the community because you've said something against one of the members or you're bringing shame on the community.
The threat of outing someone, the threat of telling somebody's landlord that they're in a lesbian relationship or telling an employer that they're in a lesbian relationship, depending on where you live, depending on your job, depending on your family supports, that's a very powerful tool of control that people can use in an abusive relationship.
And I remember talking to a friend, trying to disclose what had happened and what she'd done. And she laughed and said, "Oh, were you fighting over the hair tongs?" People's perception that two women fighting is just one big cat fight and it's equal, it's on an equal balance. There's no power struggle there at all because it's just two women having a bitchy fight.
I didn't want to talk to anybody. I went into a shell. I had no feeling. I always thought in the back of my mind, like, if that we would try and work this out and be together again, and it will be better, and it will get better, and we can start over, because there's always that hope that somebody is going to change. You don't expect a woman to behave like that.
The actual mental depression that sets in, then you say, "Are you okay? What can I do?" You're probing all the time to find this person that was very okay yesterday, like this person now is not okay today. What do you do? I mean, how do you make this person the same person? That is always, but the person changes all the time.
She would be like a different personality when she's around my family. And they would say, "Well, like, what are you talking about? She's lovely." And you don't say anything, you just say, "Oh, well, you don't know her behind the scenes."
Part of this technique of isolation of abusers, people are being kept from other people who could potentially intervene or could talk to them.
I suppose there were kind of little signs early on, but I didn't really see them. She would kind of go away and take our second daughter with her a lot. She would go away to family and spend a lot of time away from the home.
I mean, the first time I think I sort of fully confessed to what was happening, I felt really sick to my stomach. And I felt like I had betrayed her. And I felt like, oh, if I tell this now to this person, there's no coming back from this. Like, if I give this person this knowledge, it's going to be hard to then reel that back.
She left, obviously, taking the youngest child with her biological child. And then that resulted in me kind of desperately scrambling around trying to see our daughter because she was making it really difficult for me. I was at the hospital when she gave birth. I was obviously the second person to hold our daughter. We did the whole skin on skin thing, and I had that bond with her. Even though I didn't give birth, she was my child. She just started to call me mum.
It's been such a hard battle to fight, but now it's hard to really then now say, well, it isn't a utopia. That's just not the message that they're being given.
It triggered, obviously, the court process. I received a whole barrage of statements and photographs in the post. There were photographs of injuries, and there were statements saying that this was as a result of me, that I had been physically abusive to my ex-partner.
It is morbid to be, because people are, wow, in a gay relationship and this is what's happening to you. Nobody expects two women to have like this fighting thing going on, this verbal abuse. I mean, I've never ever experienced this, and I've got a lot of gay friends, and I don't know, maybe they don't speak about it. We don't know.
But this all spiraled because in my job, people were starting to question me. I actually lost my job through it because of the stress. I was taking months off work at a time because I was just not able to function because of this. I nearly lost my home. My other daughter was an absolute wreck. She was just not functioning in school because of the allegations. Then that triggered social services to come in, questioning my parenting ability with my other daughter.
Sometimes people just want or need something and don't really care how they can accomplish that.
I remember spending weeks going through my phone, going through my emails, talking to friends and family to try and pinpoint where I was on the. I mean, she was giving dates and times and everything. And I was just traumatized by this because, on the other hand, when I started to talk to people about it, it was almost like they thought, well, it must have happened.
This can be a topic that threatens sort of the grand narrative, if you like, or the dominant way of thinking about violence.
That a particular kind of story gets told, what we call the public story of domestic abuse, which is that this is a problem of cis heterosexual men for cis heterosexual women. It's a problem primarily of physical violence, and it's a problem of a particular presentation of gender. So big, strong men being physically violent towards small, weak women. If you don't see yourself in that story, then it's very difficult to tell your story. And if you're a help provider, it's very difficult to hear that story.
By the time I'd kind of vindicated myself of the allegations, then I was told that it was too late, that the bond had been severed and there was no way to restore that. The court said that I'm not allowed, so now I'm not allowed to refer to myself as a mum.
Lesbians talk about being captured in a lesbian utopia. So the idea is that the reason there's problems in relationships is because of men. Therefore, if you have a relationship with a woman, because women are not the problem, it's hard then for women who are in a same-sex relationship to then break that image and shatter that image.
Women are bad because they're forceful, they're magnetic, they're powerful. I just think because they feel they're the weaker sex.
I felt almost that I deserved that in the end because of who I was. And, you know, that reflects back to sexuality again, that I just didn't feel worthy, or I was just this dirty, horrible person.
It was my first gay relationship. And I was foolish. I should have walked away a long time ago, but I didn't have that power to do it. And that's what they tend to do. They pull you back in. There are warning signs, and I was too blinded.